What up, YouTube? It's your boy, Detroit Love, with another video. Today we're going to take this thing apart. We're going to dissect this cabinet and look at it from a modder's perspective. Look at key measurements, key components, so that we know the sizes of things that we have, the restrictions that we have to work within. So let's get this party started. The backlit back box display has three elements: two 8.0 5-watt speakers for stereo sound, four LED scoreboards, and one integrated LED light strip.
Likewise, we have three cables coming out the back. The black is for the speakers. See? Disconnect that, no sound. The next one is the smaller of the two bands. That's for the four I believe the significant measurements of this back glass are, obviously you need to know what size monitor you can get in here. And so you're looking at from top to bottom, it's about 15 inches or so, top to bottom, left to right. You're looking at about 17 inches left to right. From corner to corner, you're looking at roughly 22 inches diagonally. And then you want to know the deepness of this cabinet that you have to work with, the thickness of the monitor, and whatever else you want to put in here. So that's this distance here, because you have this back plate that's basically an inch off. So you're looking at about an inch and 5/8. An inch and 5/8 on the bottom, and it's light up here. Dark. Okay. Yeah. And about an inch. Yeah, so about the same. An inch and 5/8 thick for whatever you put, how thick the monitor can be. You also have to think about where you would put these speakers if you put a monitor in there, because you would lose that room there. So speakers would have to, you're going to have to cut out this board, and they'll still allow you to slide your plexiglass over your monitor. but these speakers would have to be relocated either below the back, or there's no room on the side for these side speakers, no room on the top to do that. So you're looking at either the back of the, either putting your speakers in here or on the side.
So I think we've just about covered everything on the back glass display box. And so you have these bow tie or butterfly nuts. You just take these 4 things off, and then we can just remove this from the main cabinet. Before proceeding, understand if you take this back display off the main unit is still going to operate as it should. All of the buttons are going to function. You can still play the game, start the game, hit the flippers, the plunger. All that's going to function independently of the backboard. You're just not going to have sound. You're not going to have scoring. You're not going to have a light on top. This is good information for troubleshooting, whether you mod or not. So understand that this metal bezel is secured by 6 screws. The tool that was included with your box will allow you to remove this. If you misplace or lose that, you can use a 6.10 millimeter bit to unscrew those. Now, I'm not sure if this tape was included on every cabinet that went out, but mine had this tape, and this tape covered both the wood portion and the metal bezel in these 2 rear corners. So before I can remove this bezel, I need to cut this tape so that it does not rip off the decals for the Haunted House portion. So I just simply took a knife and cut that tape so that the tape is still below the bezel and securing that decal. And so I have to do that on both sides. I'm not sure why they chose to do that. That's kind of weird, but no big deal. But if you don't do this ahead of time and just go to lift off this bezel, and that tape will just tear any which way that it chooses to do, it may damage or rip portions of your decal off. So before you remove the bezel, just make sure that you don't have this tape, because the tape is very visible on the black portion of the cabinet, not so easily seen on the metal bezel portion. So just make sure you remove that first, as well as the 6 screws, before you attempt to lift this bezel. Also, you see the 3 wires that go to, or cables that go to the back box. You can tuck that in at this point in time. This bezel is made of metal. It includes a 24-inch monitor that is mounted with metal brackets, as well as a pretty thick glass panel over that monitor. So this bezel has some decent weight to it. It could surprise you. You don't want to drop it or smash your fingers. And these cables that are connected to the monitor are very short. So it is highly likely that you're going to disconnect this unintentionally if you don't do it intentionally. So make sure before you disconnect it that you see the direction of the red cable so that you can plug it back in the same direction. And so just as you remove it, secure it. Taking a look at the back side of the bezel and monitor, you can see you have these metal brackets that mounts the monitor and glass
to this board. You have these two cables. We'll call this cable number 1, and this is cable number 1. That's for your display, and cable number 2 is for your power to the display. So cable number 1 plugs into this PCB printed circuit board. Cable number 2 plugs the power into that additional board attached to the PCB. Okay, so these 3 cables that power everything in your backlit board or backlit display box all feed through this hole, and we'll just look where they go. We follow the black cable that's going to plug into your encoder board. That's for your speaker or your sound. The second cable is for your scoreboards, the 4 LCD scoreboards. If we follow that wire through here, we will find that it plugs right here next to the ribbon cable for your controls. The third cable, that's still the other one, but the third one is the thickest, and that is for your LED strip light that plugs right there into the PCB as well. Again, this is your PCB. It has a heat sink and a fan, has this ribbon cable that comes down to your encoder board, and that sends a signal from all of these wires that go out to your buttons and your plunger and your flippers, and all those controls all meet, similar to your arcade 1-up, into a encoder box here. And these buttons are just a twist lock. So if you needed to replace those, you could easily do that as well. But they're pretty decent buttons for what they do. So we're just taking a look at this encoder. They're typically labeled. You see those 2 red are volume. That's for your volume up and down. Obviously, it also controls your flippers as well. So it's just part of the computer that makes all of this work. So it's not a whole lot inside of this cabinet at all. Just get in a closer look to see if we can make out what those things say. We'll let your young eyes decipher that, and you can put it in the comments. Here's the printed circuit board again. Just a close-up. The only thing we didn't mention right here, this board here that feeds the power from that port there to the monitor, we have the off and on. See that red cable there? That red and black cable, that goes to the power switch to turn it on or off. So if all this information is helpful if you're troubleshooting. If your power switch is not working, or if you don't have power, the power cable, there's a power cable bundled up there, and it plugs into the back, all the way behind. You can't really see it here, but it's right behind in the corner, the top right corner. See that black? So this video here is just for the engineers and the techno geeks in the group. Just give them a close up. It also serves for all of the non-techie people. This is the opportunity for you to go take a toilet break if you need to, or need to go get a soda. You know, you got about a minute and a half or so to go and take care of that business. Make sure you wash your hands before you come back. But yeah, we're just, again, this is where the video cable from the monitor plugs in. This is where the power from that display plugs into. Again, for the technical people, there's the model for that particular part. For all you that can read Chinese, that was available as well. You see it's screwed on to the board. There's the power, the black thing to the top right. That's where the power cable is plugging into. If you don't have power to the unit, that's probably unplugged at that point. Below that, to the right, below it is the switch for the off and on power switch. So if that's not working, then you know where to come and check and make sure the connection is good. So we're going to next look at the length of this cabinet. The length of this cabinet is, the inside measurements is 26 inches. So far we have the width at 17 inches and the width at 26 inches. So next we're going to need to get the diagonal dimensions. And this is important because even though we may say that the diagonal is 31, and so do we get a 28-inch screen there or not? We still need to know the width and length to know the size of the cabinet that houses that monitor or TV for the playfield. Now this is the key measurement here, the diagonal. This is going to determine the size of the monitor or your playfield. Now this measures in at 31 inches, so that means that we're basically stuck at a 28-inch screen, which is still, you say we're going from a 24 to a 28. That doesn't seem like a lot. It's substantial, but I think a 32-inch would fit if we're willing to cut that backboard. You see that backboard there? You have those screw points that are at least 1.5 inches, just from guessing here. At minimum, it's 1 inch, so you will gain another inch there. So now you're talking about 32 inches there, because the TV would fit, but it would be too long. The TV would be too long as is. So now we're going to look at the depth of the how deep the cabinet is. It's higher at the back, shorter at the front, but you're going to need to know this because if you put a TV in there, that's going to have a certain thickness to it. And then if you put a deconstructed computer, it's going to have power supplies and other components in there that's going to have to sit between the TV, between any plexi or tempered glass. So you need to know this. And this number here is 7 5/8. You also have to reduce the thickness for the glass and for the TV from this number. And that's the one we have left. The distance from the top edge to the bottom on the front is 4 inches and 3/4. 4 3/4 inches. There's also about an inch. Your bezel, your playfield, your glass has to fit between this 1 3/4 inches to the top of that flipper button. Most of this front portion of the cabinet is not even usable because it's more than half of it is below the inside cavity. So this is, to me, is kind of irrelevant. There's not a whole lot of space. You have that same distance of about 4 inches and 3/4
on the front panel, but you also have these buttons here. So there's not a whole lot of room for any type of coin doors at all. So I would call that a no-go on the front door. So I hope I've given you all the measurements that you need to start thinking about how you want to modify your pinball machine. How deep is your cabinet? What size playfield you want to put? Are you willing to make the adjustments to get a larger screen? These are the things we're thinking about. Hope this helps. Okay, for those who are looking to increase the height, you're basically looking at I think you're probably going to get a 2x2, 2-inch square riser foot is basically what you're going to be working on with this. Even though these aren't the same size all around, there's only two sides to it. It's like a V or L shape. But you should have a few options out there. If I find some, I'll put links in the description. But you shouldn't have a problem rising this thing up. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If it's your first time on my channel, please subscribe, hit the bell notification. Comments below. Did I miss any measurements? Did I miss anything for troubleshooting? Let me know. And until next time, guys, I'll see you on the web.